Turn one soul ring.
Got it.
Yay.
Got it.
It's proper everything this time. I think we're good to go.
Okay, right on. Yeah, last time we had a little bit of a hiccup. We had to start again.
Oh boy.
Did we?
I don't remember. I'm just thinking of that song, the White Wedding song. It's
Nice day for
to start again. I don't know if that's how it goes, but
It's in there. Yeah,
it's,
no, you
that's
did good.
in the song.
You
Yeah,
did good.
that
Yeah.
part's in the song, totally.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Not just making shit up again.
Well, welcome to the show, everybody. This is Turn One Soul Ring. I'm Kevin.
Hey, I'm Eric.
And we have our lovely editor, Ainsley, and guest host, Ainsley, joining us. Both Ainsleys are here today.
I am every Ainsley I could possibly be.
And today we're going to be continuing our series explaining the events depicted in the Magic the Gathering novel Time Streams. Last week we covered the temporal disaster that destroyed the original Tolarian Academy, as well as the decades of rebuilding that followed. We also covered Urza's first attempt to destroy the pocket Phyrexia that had been created on Tolaria as a result of that same disaster.
I always picture like I don't know, like Polly Pocket, right? So like a little tiny crick, you know, like that just sort of bends in half and lives in his little pocket world. And
yeah, that's a very good way to think of it. It's just a tiny little pocket Phyrexia and a tiny little crick. And then when it opens, it makes that noise.
Oh, yeah.
Or crick.
Great. What was the boy one? Mini Max or something?
Mighty Max.
Mighty
And
Max.
his the anthropomorphized bird was Virgil, and then he had that big guy with the beard and the brown hair and the ponytail. I can't remember his name, but there was a show. There was a Mighty Max show.
I remember watching the show.
Yeah.
I barely remember anything about it. I just know there was a show.
My brothers had a lot of Mighty Max. Yeah, a lot of Virgils.
it's so funny. It's like, I don't know. I guess the whole like, you know, genderizing toys. Like I get it, but you know,
That's a thing of the past. But it was a
let
thing
little
back then.
boys play with a Polly Pocket. Let little girls play with a pocket Phyrexia. Whatever.
Yeah, I played.
I agree.
I'll tell you, I played with a lot of Barbies. My peers before kindergarten, other than my brothers, all girls.
Nice.
So I played with a lot of Barbies. I took their clothes off.
I was gonna say, did you make them kiss and stuff? And yeah.
Yeah, and have like naked pillow fights.
Yeah. I remember one time I left two Barbies, like a Ken and a Barbie, on top of each other, like in the bed. Like, because clearly, like, we had left off at the sex scene.
Of course.
That's what had
Yeah,
happened.
we're going to pick back up here.
Yeah, when I come
Stay
back.
tuned
After,
for the next
probably
episode.
after dinner. It's right, oh, it's time for dinner. Okay, we got to stop now and I'll come back. But then I left them there like that. And, you know, like my mom had been in my room and stuff. And I remember rediscovering them and going, oh my God, she must know.
She knows.
She knows.
Do you think she knows about Barbie and Ken? So we wrapped up the last episode with Teferi being freed from the slow time bubble that he had been trapped in. And we'll begin today 7 years after that event took place. 7 years after that, Teferi had been released from his temporal prison. He was now 21, and Joyra and him seemed to be the same age. Teferi had aged naturally, while Joyra had stayed young by drinking slow time water. In that 7 years, Teferi wanted to drink fast time water to accelerate his aging, but Urza and Baron forbade it. In fact, any student under the age of 30 was not allowed to drink slow time water.
Man, they really just start police and shit, hey?
Yeah.
Well,
right.
I think they just don't want anybody to stay too young, maybe.
Forever young.
I'd probably cap it off at like 18, but, you know, because people probably aren't living... You know, I always think of this as more like feudal times, so the average lifespan is probably closer to 50 as opposed to the like 75, 80 that we enjoy today.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think 30 is kind of pushing it.
Well, I don't know if I would do, 30 maybe too much, because, like, you're kind of, like, quote-unquote past your prime. Like, you're not as virile, you're not as energetic, you're not as all these things. But 21, like, your brain isn't even fully developed yet. So I would say, like...
Yeah, fair enough.
I would say, like, maybe, like, 23, 25-ish is where I would.
Yeah, I think 25 is a good... I think that's about when the brain is all done.
Good sweet soft spot. 25.
Exactly. Exactly. So every student and scholar above the age of 30 had drunk some amount of the slow time water in the past 25 plus years since they had returned to the island. Except Urza, of course, because
Except Papa Urza.
he's eternal. They still didn't know exactly how the slow time water worked, just that it did work. So Teferi also helped to improve on the original design of the machine that Jorah built to travel through the various time rifts on the island. Once that happened, the Academy began to use the fast time bubbles to their advantage. Urza would, to grow things, for starters. Urza would send crews into them to build more munitions to destroy Crick's pocket Phyrexia in much less time than it would take them to build in regular time.
Oh, that's clever.
The only problem with this was that Urza's weapons of war could be built much faster than he was capable of acquiring power stones. And they needed those power stones because dead bodies of Phyrexians began to show up much more often. And it wouldn't be long before they would be able to travel through the time rift unscathed.
Oh, dead bodies isn't like they're trying, but
yeah, they're making it through, but shortly thereafter they drop dead.
Yeah,
it's too much. It's too much for them.
Too much.
Forget about it. So it's at this point in the story that Urza decided that he had amassed enough of an arsenal to stage another attack on Crick and his Phyrexia. Urza planned to use 750 artifact creatures he called Falcon engines to make the attack, and these were just kind of like baseball glove-sized artifact creatures that were sort of triangular shaped. And they could fly, and they, were just kind of covered in sharp edges.
Like feathers.
Like feathers, yeah. Like
the
razor
mighty
sharp
falcon.
Exactly, yeah. In addition to the two ornithopters he had designed and built for himself, the falcons would be able to penetrate the Phyrexian time bubble unscathed and begin to slaughter any Phyrexian that they found, and Urza designed them to do this based on smelling or sensing glistening oil. So they would just, these falcon engines would sense it or smell it, and they would just hone in on the closest scent.
Cool.
He also had a few incendiary devices that he could drop from his ornithopter if the need arose. So the day of the attack arrived, and as soon as the falcons began to descend toward the Phyrexian time bubble, the Phyrexians began to let ballista bolts fly out at the falcons and Urza's ornithopter.
Pew pew.
Most of them were aimed at Urza's ornithopter, and when one of the bolts struck the starboard wing of the ornithopter, the ship began to fall towards the surface of the Phyrexian time bubble. Crick was watching this happen, and he had time to wonder if Urza would be able to planeswalk before he struck the surface. But Urza wasn't fast enough.
Oh, no.
Oh, boy.
What's an ornithopter?
It's
like a plane thing.
It's sort of like a gyrocopter. It's like a single seat. Well, you can have multiple seat ones, but I think these ones that Urza built are single seat ones. But it's a Thran flying machine with
So it's specific to Magic the Gathering. It's not like
yeah, it's a good zero drop. Here's the first.
The first incarnation is pretty good. It's just like a pair of wings.
It's like a little bat without a body.
Anyways,
I can see it.
It's just a flying machine that is it's sort of it's really skeletal in its design, and it's actually one of the first Thran artifacts that Urza and Mishra discovered when they were archaeologists when they were under Tokasia's tutelage.
They were little archaeologists. I'm gonna dig up these bones and dust them all.
And they found an ornithopter, and they had to make a few adjustments, and then it could fly. And Urza just continued to improve on the design, and he made a bunch of them during the Brothers' War thousands of years ago, and he made a couple more now just to pile it around and hopefully drop a few bombs on Crick's Phyrexia. But unfortunately, he got tagged with one ballista bolt.
Oh no.
Yeah.
But he was like flapping around on his little wings, and he's like, "Word to your moms, I came to drop bombs."
Yeah, exactly. But
said
I
that
don't know why he
exactly.
didn't stay
Yeah.
1,000 feet in the air this time. That was a mistake.
Uh-oh.
Like I said, Urza wasn't fast enough to planeswalk, and he and his damaged ornithopter were dragged through the surface of the time bubble. He was falling toward the south wall of Crick's palace, which is exactly where Crick ordered his minions to go and wait for the planeswalker. Baron and Karn watched all this happen from the Giant's Pate, which was a tall rock formation that overlooked the gorge that the Phyrexian time bubble sat in. Baron's first action was to run toward the second ornithopter Urza had built, because remember I said he built 2.
There were 2.
This one's ready to go. It's totally it's prepped and ready. And Karn had something faster in mind.
Karn's just gonna jump in there.
It's literally what he does. Just as Urza's artifact falcons began to converge on the time bubble, Karn jumped off the edge of the Giant's Pate and fell toward the time bubble and through the surface into Phyrexia.
Just like,
Yeah, just like dives in, and he falls fast. So, like, he's heavy. He's a heavy boy.
He's a big,
oh yeah,
he's a big silver golem.
Boy. Thick boy. As Riley would say. Hi, Riley.
As a remember that minutes on the outside are hours in Crick's Phyrexia. So by the time Karn arrived, Urza had already been there for several hours, and the Falcon engines had still not penetrated the surface of the time bubble. So on the outside, everything is happening very fast, but on the inside, it's hours.
Yeah.
Wow.
As a result of Urza traveling through the surface of the time bubble, he sort of dematerialized. He couldn't maintain his corporeal form, unlike Karn or the Falcon engines, things that were inorganic. Urza was, of course, able to repurpose himself and cast a flying enchantment, so he would be able to land safely on the ground. But just as he was floating toward the ground, he was struck with another bolt that tore out his liver, a lung, and part of his rib cage. So
Ow.
pretty grisly.
That was a good shot.
Yeah.
I mean, you need your liver. That's vital.
Literally, yeah, it is. He was, of course, able to regrow those organs and bones, but it took effort and time. And each time he was able to regrow his parts, he was again struck by another bolt, which tore out more of his bones and flesh and viscera, until he finally fell from the air into a shallow pool of filthy, fetid water.
Yeah, that's where you want to land when you have wounds.
You just like poop water.
Ugh.
Oh.
Yeah, there's gonna be an infection.
Oh, no.
And this was when Crick's minions converged on Urza. They began to bite chunks of meat and bone from him, but lightning still roared from Urza's fingertips, killing swaths of Phyrexians.
Oh, it smokes.
But whenever he fought free of them and began to rise into the air, he was struck by another bolt and fell to be attacked again.
Man, Urza
Sounds
really
rough.
is. Yeah, Urza really is just like an unbeatable force, though.
Yeah, he is.
I can just keep regenerating myself.
He's like, I get knocked down, but I get up again.
You're never gonna keep me down.
That's right, baby.
Pissing the night away. So, even though the swaths of Crick's minions that were just biting chunks out of Urza could have killed him, conceivably, I guess. I'm not exactly sure what would kill Urza, but anyways, Crick had ordered them not to kill Urza, only to weaken him so that he could be carried to their arena to be flayed alive by Crick himself.
Oh, boy.
The arena was mostly used to glorify Crick, as many of the gladiatorial matches featured him. However, it was not a gladiatorial battle that was scheduled on this particular day. Urza was the guest of honor, and Crick planned to show his subjects that even a planeswalker could not stand against the might of Phyrexia. They had strung Urza up on a thick cylinder of obsidian. To stop Urza from mustering enough strength to focus to use his powers, Crick had tasked several gibbering horrors to slice at Urza's entrails every time he was able to heal his wounds.
Yikes.
Just like eviscerating him every time he's able to get it together.
So is Crick a big weenie? He's like, I'm going to fight the planeswalker, but first I'm going to make him as weak as possible before I do it.
Well,
No,
he's not fighting him.
Crick's not gonna fight him. He's just gonna like cut. He's gonna flay him.
Yeah.
Cut the skin from his body. And if that doesn't kill him, I'm not sure what his plan was after that. But it's just like torturing him and stuff. If he was smart, he would have just killed him, but he's just like a stereotypical bad guy. He doesn't just like do it.
Yeah, you got to play with your food.
It's like an Austin Powers, going back to the first episode in the series. It's just like, I have a gun in my room. I'll go get it, and we'll just shoot him.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, but
no, you got to do the sharks with the laser beams attached to their head.
Seal bass.
Oh, totally.
Right. Yeah.
They're sea bass.
Sea bass, yes.
They're ill-tempered. So, while Urza was repeatedly eviscerated, Crick paced in between him and the Phyrexians that filled the arena, giving a victory speech.
Children of Phyrexia, scions of the greater god Yawgmoth and his son Crick, newts and negators and spawn of time, behold the man who brought us here. Behold the man who opened for us the gateway to his new paradise, to Dominaria. He has a long, honorable history of aiding our coming domination. In the caves of Koilos, he and his brother Mishra sundered the power stone that had locked us away from Dominaria, thus opening the way for us. During Urza's subsequent war against his brother Mishra, followers of our patriarch Gix were welcomed into both armories, and Gix even made a Phyrexian out of Mishra. When Urza learned of his brother's conversion, he was so delighted. He loosed a catastrophe across Dominaria to slay its greatest armies, sink its mightiest nations, and soften the way for us to invade. He forsook his world, his trusted associate Tanos, and even his own son Harbin, all of which we have inherited. Allying himself with our comrade, the Newt Zoncha, Urza traveled to Phyrexia under the pretense of war. In truth, he was drawn to us like a gnat to a great lantern. He desired to join us, to become one of us. To show his good faith, he led an army to the realm of Serra, where he initiated a war of conquest that brings the angel realm to its knees even now. He betrayed the woman who healed him and gave us her plane as a trophy. Now, our eternal champion, our spy in Dominaria and throughout all the planes, has come to us. He has come to pay homage to Yawgmoth and the son of Yawgmoth, Crick. He has come to grant us the world. He has given us his brother, his associate, his son, his best friend, and now he gives us himself. Once he is dead, no one on Dominaria can stand against us.
Ooh, that's a good speech.
It's a pretty good speech, and I'm very positive that Urza, if he's able to like really listen to it, is not happy.
No. And the Harbin, that's a deep cut, because that might not even be Urza's son.
Yeah.
We don't know about that. It might be Mishra's boy.
Oh boy.
So cheers began to fill the arena, and into that roaring ovation came a high-pitched whistle. The whistle was ear-splitting, unlike the whistle we just made for you. The Phyrexians that had ears began to clutch them in pain. Those with knees crumpled to them and began to writhe on the ground.
The people without ears or knees were fine.
Yeah. I always like to think of people like writhing on the ground. I don't know why. That just...
It does it for you?
It's just entertaining.
All right.
Including the beasts that were tasked with keeping Urza from using his powers. So he's going to have some time to do, you know? Only two creatures in the arena remained upright, Crick and his prisoner. It was the sound of Urza's falcons that emitted the sound they were hearing.
Oh,
nice.
no, it's the whistle. My bad.
At that moment, they began to descend on the arena and impale many of the Phyrexians that were still rolling around on the ground, writhing.
That is
around on the
funny
ground.
to think about them thinking like rolling around.
When I was reading the novel, at this part, I thought, is the whistling sound reminded me of Planeswalker when they made those spiders that vibrated the glistening oil.
Yeah,
and
that's probably
then
the same thing in here.
They just blew up. Well, that's what I thought, but it's not.
Oh.
And I thought, like, why didn't Urza just make more of those spiders and drop them into Crick's Phyrexia and just, like, blow up all the glistening oil? That's what I would have done.
Oh, yeah, why not?
I don't know.
Well, he likes to try something new. Sometimes you just want to try something new.
Sometimes you just want to try something new. Yeah,
Fair.
It's been a few decades, so I get it. Anyways, the falcons were designed to cleave through flesh, bone, and metal. which is appropriate for Phyrexians. When one tore through the body of a Phyrexian, it would hone in on another and tear through that one. Whenever a falcon was lodged in a particularly resistant ball of muscle or bone or metal, its wings would begin to spin outward in order to dislodge itself.
Cool.
Fancy.
The Falcons had killed almost 300 Phyrexians in the arena in their initial attack.
In just a few seconds. Wow.
In just a few seconds. So there were still about 700 Phyrexians left. The remaining Phyrexians began to defend themselves from the Falcons, and once that happened, the fight between Artifact and Phyrexian began to balance. In the midst of battle, Urza had recovered from the torture that had been inflicted on him, and then made quick work of the ropes that bound him, as well as the Phyrexian horrors that had been torturing him. Urza began to search for Crick, but he had already left the arena to safeguard his breeding labs. Urza instead began to use what power he had left to fight the Phyrexians that remained in the arena. And I don't think I've mentioned this, but if anyone's listening to this and wondering why doesn't Urza just planeswalk out of this time bubble, and he just can't, like planeswalking doesn't work with the time bubbles. Like Urza could planeswalk to a different part of this time bubble, a different location, but he cannot planeswalk out of it, nor can he planeswalk into it. It's just one of those things. It's just one of those days.
Oh my god!
I guess like Crick knew that because he was watching if he was going to planeswalk before he hit the sphere, right?
Well, I mean, at that point, Urza could have planeswalked. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Crick's like, you know what, Urza? I see what you're doing, and I'm Crick, so you're not doing it. Crick. Yeah, it's too bad Trev doesn't just make his Crick deck like a Doomsday combo deck, because he'd have a higher win rate with it.
Ooh.
Ooh, low blow.
No, it's good. It's good that Trev doesn't like to play combo, because that way Eric and I are the only combo players, and Riley a little bit.
Riley gets it on it a bit.
Yeah, he gets it on.
With his janky decks.
That jank.
Yeah, no, he's got that jank.
He works it, though.
He works it hard. Yeah, he kicks it. As Urza and his Falcons fought, they were slowly whittled down until only a few remained. The tide had turned, and just as Urza was about to use the last of his power to destroy several negators, Karn walked through one of the entrances of the arena's fighting pit, slowly advancing on Urza's position. Because remember, Karn jumped into the time rift, everybody. Don't forget about that. And I just love imagining this scene. There's nothing but blackness, and the atmosphere is so dirty that the surface of the time bubble seems opaque. The Phyrexians are filthy, and so is Urza. Even the Falcon engines that are still fighting are covered in glistening oil from impaling themselves on Phyrexians. And in all that blackness, Karn appears, this shining silver man that was created to stop Phyrexia from ever existing. Not that that's a reality anymore, but he's a beacon of hope for Urza at that moment, but also for the continued fight against Yawgmoth, because Karn represents a fundamental difference between Urza and Yawgmoth. And like both men see the value and power in artifice, but Yawgmoth wants to create a multiverse that is populated with living artifacts, creatures that aren't susceptible to the weaknesses of flesh. And unfortunately, to achieve that goal, Yawgmoth has to destroy the way of life of most planes, probably every plane. Urza, on the other hand, has created the first truly living artifact in Karn, and not without a little help from Yawgmoth in the form of Zansha's Heartstone. But Karn isn't the least bit susceptible to the weakness of flesh and to the weaknesses of flesh and blood creatures. So he really is a bridge between the two worlds, Phyrexia and the rest of the multiverse.
Yeah, just for how he's kind of like created.
You know, and you know, the idea of coexisting doesn't really work, because with all of Yawgmoth's insane theology that he's brainwashed his followers with for the past several thousand years, it's really not likely that Phyrexia will ever be able to coexist with the greater multiverse. But Karn is an example of how living artifacts and, quote unquote living things could coexist. And it's also kind of, on a larger scale, like we, in our everyday lives, we don't have this experience yet, but how, robots are, or at least a sentient robot is just as alive as the rest of us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Even though they're, even using the terms artificially created, I think kind of sells them short. But anyways,
because I guess they're still, even like with their development of like learning is still like creation. So
yeah. So anyways, as Karn slowly advanced toward Urza, he tore apart every Phyrexian that crossed his path. Literally limb from limb, he's just pulling, stingers and legs and arms. He's just, nothing is stopping this silver golem.
Badass.
He's so cool. Other Phyrexians saw this and began to swarm the Silver Man, but Karn carved a path right through them. As he got closer to Urza, smoke bombs began to strike the ground surrounding them. Urza was able to see an ornithopter through the cloudy Phyrexian atmosphere, floating far overhead. Baron was in the pilot's seat, and once he had released the full payload of bombs, he released a metal cord from the bottom of his craft that slowly fell through the surface of the time rift and hung near Urza and Karn.
Oh, all the way down into the arena. Damn.
And they're very specific about it being metal. I don't know if
oh, yeah.
I don't know what rope is made of, but a non-metal rope might not survive the stresses of the time rift. So
like, would all their clothes melt off?
Well, Karn's not wearing any clothes, and nor do Phyrexians. And Urza, he just wills his clothes to be there, right. So maybe they might.
Yeah.
And Baron hasn't come through. He's floating above.
Baron's not coming through.
He's not coming.
No, he's smarter than that.
Yeah, Baron's
he's like, I don't want my clothes to disappear. I'm staying up here.
I think Baron might be the smartest character in this entire story.
He seems wise.
Yeah, he's very practical.
But also empathetic and in tune with emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, he's like, Urza, clean up your mistakes. Come on, buddy.
He's like, Urza, take accountability for how you made people feel.
Baron's like, Urza, life's too short. Clean up your mistakes. And then Urza's like, dude, have you drank any slow time water?
It's
Come
like,
on.
Dude, aren't you immortal? Come on.
What are we talking about here? So Karn grabbed the metal cord with one hand and Urza with the other, and they slowly floated higher as Baron gained altitude. Get that altitude, buddy.
Get it.
I just really wonder how this plays out when you have something that is in the time bubble but also outside of the time bubble, like Baron's moving it upwards, and just how time works.
Well, it takes, I think on the outside it takes a lot longer on Baron's end, and it's slower, but there must be something to that shared like physical thing that they're holding onto, like that metal cord, that metal rope.
Yeah.
That can maybe split the difference. I really don't know.
Yeah, because if Baron's up there and he's like, okay, it's going to take about 5 minutes for me to pull you out of this thing. And Urza's like, great, I have to hold on to this cord for like 5 fucking hours.
Yeah. Well, Urza doesn't have to hold on to... Urza's like done. Karn's holding on to Urza.
Yeah.
And and Karn's holding on to the cord.
Okay, so
Karn
Karn
has to
wouldn't
hold
say
on to
that.
it.
He's like, all right, I guess I'll hold on to this cord for 5 hours.
Yeah, Karn's like, Urza, I'll do anything for you, even though
honey.
you don't afford me the same deference.
He's sweet. He's like, Papa, I'll do anything.
He's like
to
a
save
he's
you.
like a dog. He's like a dog. You could beat the fuck out of him, but he'd still come and snuggle you at the door when you get home. Yeah, he's like a dog.
Don't beat dogs, guys.
I'm not.
Like
no
dogs.
one's. Well, no, don't beat dogs. That's the position of Turn One Soul Ring.
Okay, good. Just clarify.
But
that.
I'm just saying that.
No, you're right. You're right.
The perspective is that of a good boy.
He's a good boy.
So they slowly floated higher as Baron gained altitude. The Phyrexians continued to fire arrows and all manner of projectiles at the two men. They bounced off Karn and buried themselves in Urza until he could will them out again. just willing them out, like what was that? Like Wolverine in X2, X-Men United, when he got shot in the head.
It was kind of funny since like Karn's so big, so it's like there's just more arrows hitting Urza now.
Yeah, he's just hugging on Urza. Yeah. So just before they were pulled through the time rift, Urza had time to see the shrinking city littered with the remains of his Falcon engines. He thought he'd only given the Phyrexians more metal and more power stones to fight them before they were enveloped by the edge of the rift.
Oh, so he's like, man, I just like gave them a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, that's true.
It's just like, dude, do better. You've been alive for thousands of years. You can't do better?
You're so old. You should be so wise. What's wrong with you?
You suck.
Oh.
He sucks. Come on.
Urza?
Yeah, he sucks.
Well, I mean...
All that power, and he just keeps screwing up. Anyways, over the following 10 years, the Academy became even more of a fortress. They had troops and artifact creatures designed for combat posted near the edges of the Phyrexian time bubble at all times of day. They had built a new fleet of Falcon engines, as well as 30 ornithopters. They had even built a replacement flying machine that matched the one they had lost during their first attack on Crick's Phyrexia, the Blimpy machine.
Yeah, right.
They continued to fortify the Academy's defenses because in the past 5 years, they had repelled 5 separate Phyrexian attacks. All told, they had killed about 1,000 negators that Crick had bred to survive the trip through the time rift. So Crick can just send them through, and time is on Crick's side.
Looks like it.
So they would have to deal with Crick permanently at some point. But as far as Urza was concerned, their Phyrexian problem was in good hands because it's at this point in the story that Urza traveled to Jorah's homeland of Shiv to build an arsenal of artifacts that they could use to fight against Yawgmoth himself. So, Urza has that small problem of the pocket Phyrexia on Talaria, but he's got to think about the eventual Phyrexian invasion.
Yeah.
And that's what he's doing here. So Urza traveled to Shiv to find and use the mana rig to make more power stones and to forge Thran metal to eventually use for the hull of the Weatherlight. And we're throwing a lot of details at you right now, and we'll explain everything in the next little bit, so just bear with us.
It's pretty interesting that the mana rig can actually make power stones.
Yeah,
It
is.
Seems to be a pretty powerful machine.
Yeah, and if you go back and if you want to read the novel called The Thran, it's sort of like how Yawgmoth became the Yawgmoth we know today.
Okay.
But it goes into like the fall of Thran society, and a part of what caused the people started getting like a disease, and that's what Yawgmoth tried to cure, and that's how he sort of got the idea to replace parts of people's bodies with artifice. But the disease itself was caused by Power Stone radiation. So people were getting sick because their cities and devices and modes of transportation were powered by Power Stones, which is, what was making their society thrive. But it was actually what was also killing them. So, bit of a catch-22 on that one, Thran. Nice, nice. So the mana rig was a Thran artifact, much like the Glimmermoon, which we talked about in our Planeswalker series. Mm-hmm. The mana rig had powered their cities, but it had not been functional since the time of the Thran and was now controlled by the Viashino.
Oh, hey.
And we still haven't gotten a good legendary Viashino commander, so come on, Wizards of the Coast, give us a good one. The Viashino are a lizard folk creature that originally descended from the dragons that lost the Elder Dragon War, and their punishment for losing that war was that they would never again be able to fly, which makes a lot of sense because they look like anthropomorphized dragons without wings. And there were a couple of other species in that war, I think like the worms, and I can't remember the other ones, but they had also lost that war, and again, their punishment was that they could no longer fly.
Because the worms could fly before.
Well, they were all dragons before, and then they became something else.
I would much rather be a lizard than a worm.
I think worm is in like WYRM. Like,
Oh, it's not like a worm in the dirt. It's
No.
Well, they're big. They're big.
it's like a big.
They'll kill you. It's like a 6/6. It'll get you. A great way to think about magic creatures in terms of how big they are or how like their level of danger is like a 1/1 or a 0/1 would be a 0/1 would be like an average human. So like a 6/6.
You think an average human is just a 0/1? I guess that they're
Maybe-
average.
Yeah, like I think like
Yeah.
a 0, like a 1/1 or a 0/1.
That's like a soldier,
worms-
right? Like,
Yeah, a soldier. Yeah, so you have some like fighting skills. Like I'm not a soldier. I'm like
Yeah.
a 0/1.
This one worm that I Googled, is this real? This can't be real.
Oh, that's a real card.
It's 914. And it's how many mana? Is that,
Oh, that might not be a real card.
it says 30.
that doesn't sound like real.
For 30 mana, I want more than a 9/14.
Oh no, it's 10 colorless, 3 greens,
But it has Convoke.
2 white. What's Convoke?
You can tap creatures to pay the mana cost, and for colored mana pips, if you tap creatures that have those colors in their color identity, you can pay that colored mana cost.
Tuckthon worm.
That might be a real card.
It is.
It seems legit.
It's a real card. It's for sale.
Okay, well if it's for sale, it must be real. So, anyways, the mana rig was massive enough to have the equivalent of 2 cities built on top of it. The lower levels of the rig were inhabited by goblins who had operated it during the time of the Thran, but that part of the rig was also not used since the Thran Empire fell. And like we said earlier, when Urza arrived at the complex, the Viashino were in control of it, but they of course didn't know what the relic was capable of. Urza decided to parley with them instead of simply taking control of the complex, which he could have done with ease. And, you know, he could have taken control of it, but he also needed bodies to work it for him.
And then there's a nice picture that Kevin added here.
It's Bravado, the card Bravado from Urza Saga. It's a common.
Oh, okay, it's the card Bravado.
Yeah, all the pictures here are from cards.
From cards,
Yeah.
okay. Well, that's Urza.
That's Urza.
He looks smug, and he's wearing
he's-
nice armor.
Yeah, he's looking good.
He's got his nice beard, and he's talking to some guys who look like angry raptor versions of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, they're raptor mutant. They're teenage mutant raptor boys.
They even have like fancy outfits and little bracelets and stuff.
Well, they got to cover their bits. They got to cover their nips and their.
And they like style.
Yeah, they like
They
style.
like to accessorize.
Yeah, it's like a tank top that covers your bottom. I'd wear that.
It is. It's like a baby's onesie. It's
It
literally
is a lot
what
like a
they're
onesie,
wearing.
and it covers their tails a little bit too.
Yeah, some of them have it covering their tail.
At least the first guy. Yeah.
It's a Luke.
So, the Viashino saw the Mana Rig as a sacred place that they had never delved too deeply into, and at first they wouldn't let Urza into the complex. When Urza told them that they couldn't stop him, they agreed. But it's like, look, buddy, we've heard about you, all right? But they claimed that their champion could.
Ooh.
Their champion was a Shivan Drake called Rami Darigaz, and he was about the size of a small house. And we're talking like a bungalow, like 800 square feet. You know, like not that big. It's reasonable. Urza could have easily bested the beast, but he didn't want to reveal too much of his power to the Viashino just yet, so he took a different path.
Smart man.
Urza demanded the Drake take him to their king, what the Viashino called a bay, spelled B-E-Y.
That's really funny.
Bay.
They're bay.
It's like, hey, I'm going to take you to meet Day.
When the Drake didn't comply and attempted to eat Urza, Urza forced the Drake's mouth open, almost to the point of breaking its jaw.
Ooh.
The beast tried to blow fire at Urza, and when it tried to snap Urza up in its claws once more, he turned the Drake to stone, ending the contest between the two.
Well, I'm going to put it into that real quick.
You got turned to stone.
You're like, yeah, no, I want what I want. Let's stop this.
I'm Urza, bitch.
Urza once more demanded that the lizard men take him to their leader.
Take me to your
Take
leader.
me to your leader, your lizard man leader. But they were worried that if Urza could do this to their champion, what would they do to their bay?
Oh no, not my bay.
Not my bay.
This is ridiculous.
It is ridiculous.
I'm picturing
boy.
Beyonce, not gonna lie.
And just wait until we get to Bloodlines if you think this is ridiculous. So Urza unstoned the Drake, and the Vayashino took Urza to their leader so that they could make a deal. Take me to your bay. When Urza met the Vayashino Bay, named Fire Eye,
Vayashino Bay.
it's Fire Eye. His name's Fire Eye.
Fire Eye. Oh, that's nice.
He explained that he needed to use the mana rig to forge Thran metal and Thran power stones to fight the Phyrexian threat on Talaria, as well as the coming invasion. Urza specifically wanted to use Thran metal to build more living artifact men like Karn. From Urza's time travel experiments, he had learned that Thran metal was much stronger than silver, and with the rig, it was far more abundant. Silver's hard to find. He wanted the power stones to power an army of artifacts he was building and would build for the coming invasion. Fire Eye agreed to let Urza use the rig on 2 conditions. First, Urza would have to deal with another Shivan Drake that was regularly attacking the Vayashino scouting and caravan parties. This Drake was Rami Dargaz's mother, Jerry Dargaz.
Oh my god.
And she was a lot bigger.
So she was more like an apartment building?
She was probably like a
Like a skyscraper?
no, she's not that big. She's probably like a she's like a one
Like
of
a
those like
duplex?
6-plex houses.
Oh,
Probably like it's probably like 3,000 square feet.
Okay.
Yeah, she's like that big. She's not like she's more than twice as big as him, but not, like crazy big. She's Jerry Dargaz.
Oh man.
And
mommy issues.
The second condition, Fire Eye wanted the first living artifact man that Urza had built,
Like
which
his
was
firstborn child.
that's right, yeah. Which I don't
No, he can't have Karn.
and which was Karn, and not the first, and not the first one that would be built using the rig. That Fire Eye wanted Karn. Like, dude, like Urza, why are you spilling the beans that you already have one of these guys?
Yeah, come on.
Because he did. It's like, don't. Oh God.
You can't give Karn to the stupid lizard people.
Well, you wouldn't think so, and. But
it's
at the
Urza.
end of the day, Karn is his property. He can do with him what he pleases.
It's Urza.
I know that, and it's Urza, and I agree with you that sentient creatures deserve self-determination. But, this is the world we're living in.
Well, even beyond the self-determination, it's like, come on, Urza. Karn loves you. He saves you from your bubbles. And
He just saved you like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I guess you can say that in their time, right? It'd be like saying like last week to him.
But
after
he
living
would
thousands
still
of
risk
years.
anything to save him.
Karn.
Yeah.
Fucking Urza. Go suck a lemon, Urza.
So, Urza agreed.
Of course he did, because he's a twat.
Because the greater good and all that.
Sorry, I'm upset.
But for the time being, Urza had to bring Karn to Shiv as a sign of good faith. He also brought Joyra, Teferi, and several other students and scholars to help the Vayashino run the rig. While Urza was getting the mana rig up and running in Shiv, the folks back at the academy were repelling Phyrexian incursions daily, sometimes multiple times a day. Crick was breeding more and more deadly minions. The academy was starting to have a difficult time keeping up with the demands of defending their island.
That's my island.
That's my purse. I don't know you. King of the Hill. So when Urza showed up to take his chosen few back to Shiv, Baron agreed to continue defending Talaria. But Urza had given him a summoning crystal should the tide turn in Phyrexia's favor. The summoning stone was similar to the ones that Urza had given to Zancha during Planeswalker. You remember those?
Sure do.
Just break it and I'll get you.
Like
Yeah.
a little glow stick.
Like a text. Yeah, it's like if you just had like a text. Come on, dude. You're an artificer. You can't make an iPhone? Come on. So over the following year and a half, a couple of things happened. The Tellurian and Viashino crew had gotten the mana rig running and had begun to produce Thran metal. Urza and Karn also traveled to Rami Darigaz's mother's nest, Jerry Darigaz. They're fun to say. At first, I was a little nervous about saying these names, but
You're nailing it.
they're fun. They're fun. So
Ramadarigaz.
Urza and Karn are at the Drake's nest to fulfill the first condition of the deal that he made with the Viashino. When Urza confronted Jerry Darigaz and threatened, it's just funny because it's Jerry, and threatened to kill her if she didn't stop bothering the Viashino, she told him that she would stop only when her son was returned to her. But her son had willingly left and joined the Viashino, so I don't know what she's thinking here.
Oh,
Miscommunication.
Man. Empty nester. She's sad about it.
Yeah.
She is. And I would, my advice would maybe be, well, I think my first bit of advice would be therapy.
Yeah.
But, more of a Band-Aid solution would be to have more children, but then they're going to leave too. They always leave.
Yeah.
But you know what? If you're a good parent, they come back.
Yeah. Urza.
Yeah. Urza's not a good parent. So the visit ended without a resolution apart from Urza reiterating that he would kill her if she continued to bother the Viashino.
Funny.
Just
like, I want my son back. It's like, well, tough shit. I'm going to kill you. So,
you're going to need to stop, all right? So he planeswalked Karn and himself back to the mana rig. Basically, everything was going according to plan and Shiv, but it was getting harder and harder for Baron and those that remained at the Academy to repel the constant Phyrexian attacks. Now that the rig was producing Thran metal, Urza continued to work on the designs for the weapon he planned to use to fight the coming Phyrexian invasion. He had started the initial plans for the skyship Weatherlight before he had left for Shiv, and now he completed them with Jorah's help. In case you aren't familiar with the Weatherlight, it was a flying ship that Urza designed and built to plane shift or planes walk, so he would be able to respond to any Phyrexian incursion or attack anywhere on Dominaria at any time. It would be able to carry soldiers, weapons, and would be equipped with weapons itself. It would require an extremely large power stone to power the ship, and it would need to be charged by an extremely large power source to be able to plane shift. They would be able to forge the power stone for the Weatherlight's power source with the mana rig, but Urza told his cohorts that they would need the equivalent of a plane's mana to charge the power stone indefinitely.
Holy.
As it was, they would be able to charge the power stone for a single plane shift with the mana rig, but after that, they would need to find mana equivalent to an expendable plane to,
power the ship.
To suck it dry. Power it up.
Do you guys think that's foreshadowing?
Maybe.
Oh.
Urza originally planned to use Thran metal for the hull and framework of the ship, but after building the first set of Thran metal men, he discovered that after the metal was forged and shaped, it continued to expand and grow.
Oh.
Yeah.
So they're giant metal men.
The Thran metal men's bodies had a similar design to Karn's, which was a connected series of plates that made up their outer shell so that they could move easily.
Dexterously.
Exactly. As the Thran metal continued to expand, it made it impossible for the Thran men to move. All the connected series of plates would just grow and grow and grow, and they'd just be like
kind of clunky and bulky.
And he didn't have any more Newt Heartstones to stick in their heads either.
Oh, so they were dum-dums.
Yeah, and if I was Urza at this point, I would have just gone to Phyrexia, gone to the Fane of Flesh.
I was going to say, wasn't there like a tomb full
grab
of them?
a bunch of Heartstones. Who gives a shit?
Truly.
And I mean, maybe it's that the Newt had to be dead, so you'd have to track down that Newt, because like Zancha was dead, but I don't know. This is all just theory crafting on my part.
Why don't, I would just go take the stones, pop them in these guys, and when the Newt dies, it's like, poof, I'm a person.
Maybe, or it works while they're still alive, and if they go insane, just rip it out. It's a big deal.
Yeah, just see what happens.
Yeah.
So, anyways, the same thing would happen to the hull of the Weatherlight had Urza used Thran metal for its construction. So he instead used Thran metal in key places in the skyship's construction and decided that the rest of the design would be wooden.
Interesting.
Ooh.
So,
Wooden.
but it's like this Thran metal. Like, how long does it continue to expand?
It just always. It just indefinitely.
Always?
So, like, you fill up your little storage closet with all your bits and bolts of Thran metal, and then you go to open
It's
the
gonna
door
bust
one
out.
day, and
You
you're
don't
like,
even have to wait to
"Oh,
open the door.
shit."
It's gonna bust out. It's gonna break the door.
So where are they gonna put it? In a bubble.
Where are they gonna put what?
All the metal.
The metal that they made. They'll just melt it down again.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sounds like a lot. This Thran metal sounds fucking high maintenance.
Well,
Yeah,
I
right?
wonder why their empire didn't survive.
Because they're a bunch of high maintenance fucks.
That's right. Right. No wonder Yawgmoth was like, I gotta get out of here. I gotta get out of here.
Oh, man.
So not just any wood would do for this skyship.
Wood.
Haven't we all been there, huh? Not any.
You gotta get that wood.
Won't do.
No.
It's at this point in the story that Urza decided to travel to Yavimaya to secure the wooden components for the Weatherlight. Yavimaya was a thickly forested mountainous region of the southern coast of the Dominarian continent Teressier. It was the domain of the Maro sorcerer Multani. The Yavimaya forest grew into a single sapient mind after the Ice Age, which Urza himself caused. And a good way to think of Multani is like the forest spirit from Princess Mononoke, if you've seen that movie. All the various parts of the forest communicate with Multani. So if you're in that forest, Multani sees you. Multani knows all. I hesitate to say he. It's just like Karn. Like we say he, but it's also both these characters are non-gender specific.
Yeah.
It's just, what's happened over time, and back in the 90s we weren't so highbrow. Am I right?
I don't know if highbrow's the word.
What is the word?
Enlightened?
Yeah, that's
Sure.
perfect.
That's
It was the 90s.
It was dark times.
So, Urza left Joyra and Teferi in charge of the rig while he was gone. He planned for this trip to take only a few days, but when he arrived in Yavimaya, he encountered the aforementioned Multani, who was none too happy with the planeswalker.
yeah. You're just
Multani-
like, taking all my wood. What the heck?
Well, I think that was the least of his...
All of these funny, like,
Anthropomorphized.
Thank you. Creatures, like there were those guys earlier. Maybe it's the Phyrexians.
Divishino.
Yeah, but in past episodes there was the Phyrexians. I'm pretty sure you had a picture of one of those guys. Was it a Phyrexian? I don't know. But they all have very ripped abdomens. Like, it's like I have a goofy head.
Well, I don't think there's a lot of carbs on Dominaria.
I guess not. Like, they got goofy faces and goofy hands and funny claws.
Well,
And
he's a tree.
He's a tree.
He's a tree man.
But he has like an 8-pack.
Oh, he's got, like, look at these that go up behind his pecs.
Right, those are different muscle. Like, this is like the abs.
Yeah.
And he's got like rippling pectoral muscles. Like,
Yeah, he's ripped. Multani's ripped.
he's a ripped tree.
It's also just tree parts.
Those are just tree parts. Yeah, trees are pretty ripped. They're hard. You ever punched a tree?
And they're always sporting wood.
They are. Yeah. So Multani knew about Urza's past mistakes, especially destroying Argoth and subsequently causing the Ice Age. So when Urza wanted Multani to ally his forest with Urza and his coalition to fight Phyrexia, the forest spirit instead imprisoned the planeswalker.
Huh.
Multani didn't imprison Urza's body, though. He imprisoned his mind. Because Urza doesn't really have a physical body.
Yeah, he was able to whatever in the time bubble.
Will it.
Corporeally form it back.
If you will it, it will be.
Yeah.
Multani forced Urza to relive the devastation he and Mishra inflicted on Argoth. That's not really fair. I don't think you need to do, like, both. I mean, punish the person for what they did. You don't need to punish them for what their sibling did. But anyways, this was only happening in Urza's mind, but it was as real as you and me, or whoever you are listening right now. It's like that. Imagine.
Unless this is all just a dream. Or no, what is it?
Or a simulation,
A
which we
simulation.
can't know.
Simulation.
Right, a simulation.
Yeah, which we can't know.
And you know what? If it is a simulation, guys, don't panic about it. Some people feel really uncomfortable at the idea that maybe what we're experiencing right now is just a simulation. But you know what? If it is, who gives a shit? Who gives a shit? What if it's a simulation? You having a good time? You like to drink some stuff? You like to consume some stuff? You like to buy things? You got some people that you like?
You like cold pills?
Sure.
Do it up.
Whatever makes you happy.
Do it up.
Right? Don't worry about it. Just feel good in our little simulation.
Yeah, if that's what it is. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about what you can't prove or what you can't know. Just enjoy it. Just play Magic. Don't worry about it.
Just enjoy the ride. YOLO.
Yeah.
Don't worry about the blue and red pill.
No.
That's right, Eric.
Don't do it. So, like we said, this trip was only supposed to take a few days, but Multani kept Urza prisoner for almost 5 years.
That is very different from the plan.
Yeah, that's come on, dude.
It's only a little bit different.
How much of that 5 years was Mishra's sentence?
That's so stupid.
You know, punishing one brother for the other's sins.
I always hate that. I always hate that trope in in TV shows or whatever, like if one of the siblings was bad or something, or like a teacher who's like, oh, I hated your sibling, so I'm gonna hate you without even knowing you. It's like, what?
It's a tale as old as time.
Now I want to watch Beauty and the Beast.
In that time, the Phyrexian threat on Talaria had become almost insurmountable. Baron, his students, and scholars could not keep up with the new and improved negators that Crick attacked with multiple times a day. Even the summoning crystal that Urza had given Baron had not worked to free Urza from his prison, so he cracked it.
Oh, yeah.
And Urza did not come. All Baron could do now was wait. It was only a matter of time until Crick conquered Talaria. Phyrexia.
Phyrexalaria.
Nice.
At one point during this time, the Phyrexians had discovered a deep spring out of their time rift that led into the Academy's well system. One night, negators sprung out of every well in the Academy. Baron and his forces were able to fight off the attack with only a few casualties, but the worst death toll followed this attack. The dead bodies of the Phyrexians poisoned the Academy water supply. Any who drank from the school water supplies in the days after the attack developed a flesh-eating disease that turned their muscles to bloody mush and made bone as brittle as crackers.
Ooh, that's visceral.
23 students and scholars died before the source of the contagion was discovered. So things aren't looking too good for Talaria at this point.
Yikes.
Talaria ain't doing well.
As for the events happening in Shiv, Joyer had spent the past few years maintaining the rig and its output of power stones and Thran metal. She also stalled the Viashino from taking Karn into their possession. She told them that because Urza hadn't built a working Thran metal man, the terms of their deal had not been met. So she's looking out for Karn.
Yeah, she is, because they're BFFs.
Yeah.
The Viashino's champion, the Shivandrake Rami Dargaz, had decided he wanted to return to his mother. So they put him in a cage, and he went from being their champion to a chained traitor.
I want my mama.
Well, Jerry's not coming for you, buddy. Jerry Dargaz had also heard of Urza's long absence and had resumed her attacks on the Viashino. Not an ideal situation in Shiva either, but unlike Talaria, they weren't fighting for their lives constantly.
Sounds tedious.
Just as Baron and his cohorts were making their last stand against a Phyrexian assault, Baron heard the unmistakable sound of Phyrexian screams in the distance. Urza caused those screams with his lightning-shooting hands. He's back. He's back, baby.
Nice.
Like any entertaining story, Urza had arrived in the nick of time to turn the tide of battle. Multani had seen that this Urza was a different man than the Urza that had destroyed Argoth. This Urza only wanted to save Dominaria from Phyrexia, even if he didn't want to save Karn, but we'll get to that. But not at any cost. That's the important part of Urza's character growth here.
Okay, so now he cares a little bit.
A little.
Yeah.
Great.
He fervently wanted to save Dominaria, but he also wanted to preserve the plane and its inhabitants in the process. And in that fervent need to save his plane and his friends that cried out to him from Talaria, Urza broke free of Multani's grasp. Because even though Multani had seen that Urza had changed, he didn't think Urza deserved to be set free. He's a little petty. Multani's a little petty.
Well,
I can be a little petty.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's
That's why I get it.
What's going to happen to everyone else if Urza isn't freed? Like, come on.
Come on, tree man, let him go.
Yeah.
But that didn't matter because Urza was breaking free, no matter what the tree man did. In one last attempt to keep Urza anchored to the forest, Multani poured himself into Urza's being. But it didn't stop Urza from reforming his corporeal body and planeswalking directly to Shiv with the forest spirit as a passenger.
Fun. He's like, all right, let's take you with me.
Yeah, it's like Cortana and Master Chief. When Urza arrived in Shiv, he told Jorah and Teferi to gather their best fighters. He would return shortly to planeswalk them to fight on Teleria. Then just as quickly as he had arrived in Shiv, he arrived on Teleria. When Urza arrived on Teleria, he was able to stave off the main attack on the Academy and find Baron. He told Baron that he was bringing reinforcements. Once that task was done, Urza was going to kill Crick. Urza planeswalked back to Shiv and quickly swept up the group that Jorah had assembled into a two-dimensional planeswalking enchantment that protected creatures without a spark. So he didn't have to turn them to stone, and they were totally safe. Everybody wins. The group included Teferi, Karn, a bunch of Viashino, a bunch of goblins, a platoon of Thran metal men, and the Shivan Drake, Rami Darga.
Darga.
Oh, that freaking dragon.
Even with this ragtag group of reinforcements, Urza knew that they would not be enough, and as soon as he transported them to the academy, he walked back to Shiv to the nest of Rami Darigaz's mother, Jerry Darigaz. Urza explained that her son was fighting for humans, Viashino, and goblins, and that she should join them to fight with them. He explained that if she did, her son would return to him. To her. Excuse me. That was my Papa energy taking over.
Yeah.
And just like that, the Shivan Drake agreed. Urza used the same enchantment on Jerry Darigaz, and he'd used on the Shivan reinforcements, and they were on Teleria in a split second. Just like that. When they arrived at the academy, Jerry Darigaz spread her wings and let fire rain down on the Phyrexians that had breached the academy walls. Instead of joining the Drake in battle, Urza planeswalked to a much quieter part of the island, just outside of Crick's fast time bubble.
Oh, he's going to be all sneaky.
He's just going in. This time he's not falling in. He's going in.
He's going in.
Urza passed through the surface of the time bubble, reformed himself on the other side, and headed for the breeding labs. Once he had destroyed those facilities, he would hunt down Crick and finish this. I mean, you know, hindsight's always 20/20, but maybe just start with that.
Yeah, right.
You know, the first time, you don't have to build a big flying machine and drop bombs. Just get in there. Just get after it.
Get in there and get those breeding labs.
Yeah.
So, from Urza's decades of observation, he knew where the labs were located, and with a thought, he planeswalked to their location. When he located the first set of vats filled with decanting Phyrexians, he let loose a blast of blue lightning into them. The lightning ignited the oil-filled vats, and the creatures inside cooked to death.
Yum.
I wonder what it smelled like. The labs filled with thick black smoke as Urza continued to ignite vat after vat. Just as Urza was wrapping up the first part of his plan, he heard the sound of one of his falcon engines through the screams of burning Phyrexians. He turned to look toward the sound and was impaled by the flying artifact.
Oh.
And it's rough when your own weapon gets turned against you. Crick had modified the falcon engine and pointed it at Urza. So instead of going after glistening oil, it now went after Urza. He must have had like a bit of his clothes or something to like get the scent. I don't know. They don't go into that. But as Urza was lying on the ground, almost incapacitated by the artifact that was chewing up his internal organs, Crick moved out of the black smoke that filled the breeding lab. Crick explained to Urza that he had another larger breeding lab below this one, meaning that the damage Urza had caused was little more than an annoyance. Crick told Urza that he had learned from their last encounter. The mistake that Crick made when he last had Urza as a prisoner was that he gave Urza even a second to recuperate after being eviscerated by the Phyrexian monsters in the arena. Crick thought that if he could use a falcon engine to continuously rip up Urza's insides, he wouldn't be able to use any of his powers and Crick would be able to kill him. Of course, that wasn't the mistake that Crick made. The mistake that Crick made was not killing Urza as soon as he had the chance, and he'd made the same mistake on this occasion. Anyways, this time around, Urza had an ace up his sleeve. This time, Urza had the forest spirit of Yavimaya inhabiting his body. Multani gave Urza the strength for a single planeswalk, and he suggested a place that would shield Urza from Crick's reprogrammed Falcon engines. With the thought, Urza planeswalked to the space that Crick's body inhabited, and the Phyrexian that had plagued Talaria for decades exploded in a rain of blood, black flesh, and glistening oil, most of which covered Urza.
Wow.
So he just planeswalked to where Crick was and...
Boom, Crick dead.
Exploded.
Nice.
And with Urza covered in glistening oil, the Falcon engines had no interest in him.
Cool.
Yeah. So Urza asked Multani if this meant that they were now allies, and Multani replied,
You have known the agony of Argoth. We have known the agony of Phyrexia. If these are the creatures you fight, we are allies.
Best friends.
BFFs.
Anyways, Urza then found the route to the lower level breeding labs and destroyed them all before leaving the Phyrexian Time Rift for the last time. And the joint forces defending the academy were also victorious, but Urza still needed to secure the wooden components, don't forget about those, for the Weatherlight. So he traveled back to Yavimaya with Multani to do so. Once there, Multani provided Urza with the Weather Seed, which was the seed of the oldest Magnagoth tree and the heart of the Yavimaya forest. Urza transported the seed back to Talaria and planted it. Once it grew, it would use the wood for the hull. He would use the wood for the hull of the Weatherlight, which is where the name of the skyship came from.
Cool.
Weatherlight, Weather Seed.
Yeah.
With the final stages of the Weatherlight under construction, Urza needed to travel back to Sarah's realm to clean up one last mess from his path. Because remember, Baron's always telling him to clean up your messes.
Yeah.
He's finally
You better
doing it.
Do it.
Do it.
Clean up your mess, Urza.
So, just as we said during our Planeswalker series, Sarah's realm had been infiltrated by Phyrexians after Urza and Xanta traveled there millennia earlier. Once Sarah left the plane for parts unknown and the Phyrexian black mana essence infected the plane, it had started to deteriorate. In the years since Urza's inaugural visit, the plane had only continued to deteriorate, and now it was on the brink of collapse. So Urza did what any man on the road of redemption would do. He planned to travel to Sarah's realm, ferry as many inhabitants to Dominaria as he could before the plane collapsed. It's a good guy move. Urza made the trip during this time period alone. When he arrived on Sarah's realm, it looked similar to when he saw it last, but there was the unmistakable scent of glistening oil in the air.
Man, that glistening oil.
It's unmistakable. It didn't take long for Urza's arrival to be noticed. He was intercepted by a couple of angels and taken to the Archangel Radiant, Sarah's former second in command and now the leader of the realm after Sarah's departure.
Oh, okay.
She looks good. So Radiant was none too happy to see Urza, blaming him for the Phyrexian presence on her plane. Radiant wasn't too upset with Urza, though, because she let him tag along on one of her Purification Army's missions. The Purification Army was a tool for weeding out and killing Phyrexians, so like sleepers, Phyrexians that looked like Sarens but were Phyrexians. The angels that made up this army used something called a soul torch, a device that would glow yellow in the presence of Phyrexian. While on the aforementioned mission, Urza saw that Radiant and her army killed both Phyrexians and Sarens.
Oh.
When Urza confronted Radiant about this fact, the angel told Urza that the Sarens they killed were dissidents and not loyal to the realm. That's crazy talk.
Yeah,
A little bit.
They could still be loyal to the realm later.
So Urza offered to take as many Sarens to Dominaria as wanted to go, and if there were any Phyrexian sleepers among them, Urza would deal with them on Dominaria.
I'll deal with you later.
It's a good deal. It's a good deal. Radiant wasn't having any of this, and she labeled Urza a Phyrexian and an enemy of the realm.
What a
Okay.
goof. She's like, I don't like this.
You're
a bad guy.
Phyrexian.
Yeah.
You're an enemy of the realm.
You're a Phyrexian.
She seems a little cuckoo bananas.
She's a little touched.
A little bit.
Before Radiant could order her Purification Army to seize Urza, He planeswalked the hell out of there. You know, just like sees him. Oh, gotta go.
Bye.
Bye.
Peace it out.
I guess like at least Urza tried, right?
He did try. He offered.
Yep.
So it's not completely Radiant's fault, because her war minister, Gorig, was actually a Phyrexian sleeper that planted the idea for the Purification Army into her head, and the soul torches that the army used to identify Phyrexians also absorbed the white mana of the Sarans that they killed. So it was just a Phyrexian plot all along.
Oh no.
Isn't that always the way?
Poor Radiant.
Yeah. Gorig was converting that white mana into black mana and keeping it in a central mana battery somewhere in Serra's sanctum. Once a critical amount of white mana had been absorbed from the plane and its inhabitants, the plane would finally collapse.
Wow.
And like we said earlier, this collapse was going to happen no matter what. This series of events just accelerated the process.
Right, because Sarah's plane was not real, or she created it.
It was she created it just like Phyrexia was created, and it was like a pure white mana plane. So the introduction of black mana started its deterioration, and also Sarah leaving accelerated it in the first place.
Cool.
So, anyways, Urza continued to make repeated covert visits to Sarah's realm and used those visits to evacuate hundreds of Saran refugees. By this point, the construction of the Weatherlight had been completed. Urza named Karn the Master of Engines, and Karn could actually, like in Pacific Rim, how they could, what was that called, drifting? They could, like, drift and pilot the big robot. Well, Karn could, like, connect with the Weatherlight's power source and pilot the ship from there, and like pilot it better than any other pilot because he's like one with the ship.
That's cool.
That's cool.
And Joyra was made the captain of the vessel.
Oh. Yeah.
And
so he wasn't taken by the lizard man because Joyra said, well, he hasn't made a metal man yet.
yeah, like eventually they're like after the I forgot to mention that after the fight on Talaria, they're like, look, you know, Karn fought with you, you know, he worked on the rig for all these years, like, can't you see him as like a sentient individual? Mm-hmm. You can't take him as your property. And the Viashina are like, you know what, Bae, you're right.
You know what, Fire Eyes?
You're right. So yeah, Karn's free. Well, he still belongs to Urza, but he certainly doesn't belong to the lizard man.
Yeah.
Karn free.
Karn liberated.
Aww.
Hey.
Urza planeswalked the Weatherlight, filled with artifact creatures, the Thran Metal Men that we talked about previously, its crew, and the two Shivan Drakes with Baron and Urza as their mounts. Urza riding the mother, Jerry, and Baron riding the son.
That just sounds wrong.
Urza planned to use Gorig's white mana battery to charge the Weatherlight's Power Stone and fill the Weatherlight with the remaining Saran refugees and plane shift back to Dominaria.
Oh.
When they arrived on Sarah's plane, the plane was very close to collapsing, and they were immediately attacked by Saran angels led by the War Minister Gorig. Urza left his forces to search Sarah's sanctum for the mana battery. While searching the sanctum, all Urza found was Radiant, who challenged him to single combat. Probably a bad idea. Urza quickly realized two things. First, each angel that was killed only hastened the collapse of the plane, so each loss of white mana only increased the collapse of the plane. And second, Gorig himself was the mana battery that Urza was looking for.
Mm.
I'm the battery. I'm the prize.
That's right.
That's interesting.
During the fight, Radiant killed the Shivan Drake, Jerry Darigas.
Oh boy.
No, she's done.
Mama, no!
Mother and son just got reunited.
I know, they were about to be reunited. Aww. Guess what? You're done. At least Karn's good, right?
Yeah, he's good.
Yeah, Karn's still there.
And Radiant was able to gain the upper hand on Urza by ripping the Power Stone eyes from his head, which is what Gix tried to do in the last book. I think he was trying to rip those stones out of his head.
What the heck?
As a result of this, Urza's physical form disappeared because he needs those Power Stones.
Yeah.
Radiant then tried to join the stones back together, causing an explosion which killed her and destroyed the sanctum, and reconstituted Urza's physical form with the Power Stone eyes separately as his eyes.
What the heck? Okay.
Radiant, you fucked up.
You fucked up hard. Yeah.
But like,
God.
where does Urza appear? Because the plane got destroyed.
No, the plane's fine. It's just the sanctum is destroyed.
Oh, the sanctum. Okay.
Yeah, just the palace.
Yeah.
We're good. We're still good.
Gotcha.
During the battle, like around the Weatherlight, Baron was able to trick the War Minister into impaling himself on the tip of the Weatherlight's bow, which is kind of a sick way to die. And I don't exactly know seafaring terms, but it's the part of the ship that like points off the front.
It's pointy.
It's pointy, yeah. Anyways, the impaling of Gorig inadvertently charged the Weatherlight's Power Stone, so the hard part was over.
Nice.
Wow.
You just got to put the plug in the battery. That's all.
Just
Boom,
all
done.
worked out.
Yep. Urza arrived shortly thereafter, and they all got the hell out of there.
All right.
With the Weatherlight's Power Stone charged and the ship filled with as many refugees as it could carry, Urza, Baron, Joyra, and Karn plane shifted back to Dominaria just before Sarah's realm winked out of existence.
I kind of like thinking of
And
that like whole situation. Just like Urza pops back, and it's like, oh yeah, impaled this guy on the ship, and it works now.
All right, let's get the hell out of here. And when they got there, they unloaded all the Thran metal men, and they replaced their space with refugees. So once back on Talaria, they settled the Saren refugees into Fairy's homeland, Zalfir, and Joyra and Karn continued to command the Weatherlight, while Urza and Baron continued to train students for the coming Phyrexian invasion. And that's where the story ends. And we'll pick this series back up in a few weeks with the events depicted in the novel Bloodlines.
So we're going to find out what happens with Crick, and they're going to have a fight again and stuff.
No, Crick's dead.
Crick's
Oh,
dead.
right, he died.
He exploded.
I'm
He
sorry.
blew up.
Yeah, that's right. He blew up already.
Yeah, it's all good.
Okay.
It's all good. It
No,
happened fast.
It's the other guy. It's the big Phyrexian guy.
Yawgmoth.
Yawgmoth.
Daddy.
Daddy Yawgmoth.
Yeah,
That's right.
Big Daddy Yawgmoth.
Daddy Yog.
So thank you all for listening, and Ainsley, thank you for joining us in this series. We look forward to Bloodlines when you're back on the show.
I'm excited about it.
Heck yeah.
If you enjoy this type of content and want us to cover a particular part of magic lore, you can find us at Turn One Soaring the podcast on Instagram and YouTube, and you can email us at turnonesoaringthepodcast@gmail.com. You can comment, or you can on Instagram you can slide into the DMs and let us know what you want us to cover. Also, comment and review us, or rate and review us wherever you listen to this. That does help a lot. You can find me on Instagram at Command Beacon if you want to get in touch with me directly. And you can find Ainsley on Instagram at
Ainsley Amethyst. Like
Yeah.
the stone. Like a heart stone. That's what mine would look like if I had one. It would be an amethyst.
it's like a biological heart. That's how the stone looks.
They would be purple.
Okay, close enough. Thank you all for listening, and we'll be back next week with I don't know, something. We'll have an episode. I don't exactly know what we're doing.
Riley will probably be hanging out.
Riley's gonna be back. Yeah, everybody, get excited.
Riley.
It's gonna be Riley time.
That's right. You say hi.
All right. Well, everybody, we will talk to you next week. Thank you for listening. Bye now.
See ya.
Bye, guys.
Turn One Soaring.
Did anybody ever have like a science teacher who said like the blood inside the body was blue, and or like deoxygenated blood was blue, and oxygenated blood was red?
Yeah.
I had a science teacher like that, and I had to be like, no, you're just wrong. It's all red. It's like once the blood touches the oxygen, it turns red. Like once you start bleeding, that's when the blood turns red. It's like, no, No. Anyways,